Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unleash Her. I'm Roberta, and I'm your host for today's podcast. And I'm so grateful that you're here. And do us a huge favor. Go ahead and follow this podcast, and head on over to YouTube if you're not there already, and subscribe to my channel so that you can also see us in action. Yes, we're on Spotify, Apple, all of that. But I love YouTube. This is where you can see the faces of the people that I'm interviewing. And so I can't wait to get into this. And today's guest is Jenna Udenberg, and she is an inspiring author, disability advocate, and accessibility educator. Diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at just 7 years old, Jenna has faced life's challenges with incredible resilience and determination. As a 2020 Bush Fellow, she uses her voice to create more inclusion and accessible spaces for everyone. She shares her book, Within My Spokes, shares heartfelt stories of perseverance, healing, and the relationships that shaped her journey. Jenna's work throughout her nonprofit, Above and Beyond with You, is transforming lives by championing inclusion and breaking barriers. Let's dive into her incredible story and the lessons she has to share. So, without further ado, welcome, Jenna.
Hey, Roberta, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And just reading your bio, your introduction, I'm honored to have you here today, and I'm excited for you to share your story with everyone. And really, you've done so much, and I am so curious to hear how, this all transformed in your life, and all of the things that you've done. So, if you could share some stuff with us, I would appreciate it.
Sure. I want to travel back to the beginning. Does that sound like a good place to start?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I was a 7-year-old little girl getting ready for first grade and sitting in the goldenrod tub back in the 1988. So giving you a good picture there. My right knee floated to the top of the bubbles, and it was about the size of a American softball, which was twice as big as my other left knee. So, like any good little girl, what did I do? I screamed for my mommy because mommies make everything better, right?
Mhm.
So that led to going to my pediatrician, who actually was my labor and delivery doctor. And he said, "Oh, I think you probably have water on the knee." And my dad was a volunteer on our very rural local ambulance for several years. And he's like, "There's no way my little 7-year-old has water on the knee because she's not an athlete. She didn't do any of the things. Like, that doesn't seem right." So we got a second opinion in our small town, and he took one look at my blood work and one look at my knee and said, "I think you have arthritis, and I need to send you to Duluth, which is like the next big town in Minnesota next to us." And that rheumatologist looked at me and said, "Well, we need to send you to Mayo because at that time, Lyme's disease, the tick-borne illness, was coming on the scene, and a lot of the symptoms were similar. So I had to go down to Rochester, Minnesota, to the Mayo Clinic to get my official diagnosis." Um, in the early 1988, so I was still 7 years old. And yep, so then it was deemed at that time to be juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. But in the last probably 8 years or so, that philosophy or that diagnosis title has changed. So throughout my whole journey, I never fit the rheumatoid part of like the disease cycles. So if the doctor's book said A plus B equals C, Jenna was Q to the square root of R times S to the, yeah, it was a hot mess of what they needed to do. So I was so thankful in the last few years that it's now juvenile idiopathic arthritis or just juvenile arthritis. And then even so, because now I just turned 45, and so a couple years ago, the medical world was like, "Let's take juvenile off your diagnosis." And I was like, "No, because if I get an emergency, they need to know this has been a lifelong endeavor with all of my surgical scars that my body holds and all of that. Like, I prefer having Juvenile on there. Plus, you know, when we're middle-aged women, you want to be reminded of our youth at some point. So,
Right? Exactly.
so it's all good.
So once that, so at 7, did your health start declining from there? Or
Yeah, so I was in a manual wheelchair by age 8. And as a kid, you just don't know any better, right? I was in tons of pain, couldn't go to school. In second grade, I was out of school more than I was in school. I could only go to school when my dad was home. He was a millwright in the local iron ore mining up here on the North Shore and on the Iron Range. And so I could only go to school when he would be there to lift me up on the bus because I couldn't do stairs anymore, and then lift me home off the bus. Because at that time, school buses with lifts were not a thing. We had a local transit company that had them, and they were called the Blue Bus because the buses were blue. So pretty early on, I learned that I was different, from not only the way my body presented to the wheels that I was in to the wheels that got me to and from school. It was a great change for sure. But again, because I was diagnosed so young, you just you don't know any different, you know? So, um, it was hard, it was painful, and the doctors were all like, "Wow, this is really rapid. This is, like, intense of how strong your disease is and how much it's taking over." So,
wow. How was everyone else surrounding you? Your friends, your family, the teachers?
depends on the year.
Mm.
You know, family did what they could, right? We were a pretty blue collar family. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, so that was a blessing because there's so much in the medical world that had to just take precedent. So I can't imagine if she was a working mom how that would have ever worked in that sense, or working out of the home, I should say. She did a lot of work in the home. I have 3 older siblings. My brother's 16 years older, and my 2 sisters are 15 and 12 years older. So I'm the baby by a lot, and I'm also kind of the lonely petunia at some points in my story. So yeah, so they were all like graduating. They were graduated high school. My next oldest sister was just graduated high school before all this started. So still living at home, doing the college thing. Yeah, so they had a different experience in, you know, me becoming disabled and all my medical stuff, and not being really able to help because all their lives were starting their journey of being fresh out of the nest and doing their things. I was very thankful for solid friendships that I had through elementary school and middle school. Like I said, I characterize my years of school as good and bad years. So in my memoir, you'll see, third grade was a great year because they were serial casting my knees so I could get up and I could walk with my cast on. And then everybody thought I was cool because as soon as my butt was out of my chair, other people's butts were in my chair. So then, they thought it was fun at that time until their arms started to hurt, or they figured out that, using wheels wasn't all it was cracked up to be as little third graders thought. And then like fourth grade was bad, fifth grade was bad, just, full of pain and those kinds of things. I did go through a pretty severe depression when I was 15. Um, and during that time is when a lot of things had to change at school. And so during that time, I knew that there was pushback from some of the teachers. A lot of comments of, well, why are we doing all these accommodations and changing of schedules just for one kid? Why did they have to be in band? It's just an extracurricular. They don't need to be in it. Why are we spending district money to do XYZ? And yet here I was, your lead trumpet player, and getting superior ratings for solos and small ensembles and jazz band and band. But you're right. Why would we accommodate for just one kid?
Wow.
Yeah.
Because little did they know, from what I'm reading here, you went on to become a music educator.
Yeah. So pretty much
Hmm.
put that in your pipe and smoke it, right?
Right? Like seriously, this is incredible.
Yeah, so my middle school band director, she was quite the spitfire, and she inspired me to do what I wanted to do. And it wasn't because of the love of music and knowing different chords and music history and music theory and being a music geek. Like, Nope, that wasn't my thing. She saw me as a human. She saw my value and my worth, and she fought to make sure that I was in and included in all of it. So
Oh,
that's what I wanted to move forward with. That was, you
it
know,
took one person, that one person to believe in you.
right. Yep. And then her and my high school band director too, they kind of became my musical parents. And so that's where and how I became who I am.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Oh,
yeah,
that's so beautiful. I think we can all look back and say there's like one teacher we can remember more that stands out to us that
right.
really made that difference. And wow.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, you're just, oh,
Yeah, and so it was very interesting because I started my career in Duluth in the parochial school system and doing like a private studio. And then I was called back up to Two Harbors, a small rural town on Lake Superior, which is my alma mater. And so very interesting coming back in, right, as a former student, working with some of the teachers. Thankfully, the negative ones had already retired before I
yeah.
came back as their colleague. Um, but awesome because then I was reconnected with my adaptive PE teacher, and now we're good friends, and she serves on my board and all the things. But different stories she told me of like, I couldn't tell you when you were a student, XYZ, and I couldn't tell you when your parents had, suits through OSHA and all the things because of lack of accessibility and discrimination and those kinds of things as a student. But now that you're an adult and you're a teacher, like, let's have some conversations. And it was like, very eye-opening of like,
Mm.
small rural town, these people go fishing with your dad, but this is what they're saying behind your back, but this is like the real thing. And so just very interesting ways of navigating in small towns. And I get it. It's through no fault of their own. Like, and yet when we know better, we do or should do better. And so anytime I share those stories, it's not to um poke negative light at any of those people in any way, shape, or form, but it's just to say, like, now I have a voice, now I see, and now it's not okay. And so sharing that story so others can learn from it. And let's not keep perpetuating the same discrimination and negative outlook on disabilities and on students with disabilities or their families. Um, and as I've stepped into or wheeled into my leadership journey, that's where I've come back and like I've opened my mouth and like as I'm hearing my voice, I'm going, did I really just say that to the current superintendent? Or did I really just say that to the mayor? Or did I really just say that? But it's true. Like I don't want this generation of students going through the same horrific, trauma-filled, hurtful, harmful things that my family and I went through. And nobody can say no to your story and your lived experience. So,
That's right. Exactly. So you were a music teacher. Okay.
mhm.
And so when did you decide to write a book?
So that happened during the pandemic.
Mm.
So I was working from home on work from home orders. And it was like the third year, I think, of pandemic teaching. And I was assuming I was going back in this same virtual setting. And it was like August sometime. The district came back and said, we're not interested in your work from home orders. And then that became the big discussions with unions and lawyers and the whole nine yards that I ended up on a disability retirement. And during this time, I was also a 2020 Bush Fellow. So it all, nothing happens for not a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. And so it was just very ordained timing that all these things came together. So I was able to use some of my Bush Fellowship funds to get some training on how to be a self-published author. And then I just was given the label of accessibility educator because I really went through an identity crisis for a while because the U of Above and Beyond with You actually stands for Miss You. Because the little kindergartners, 5-year-olds can't say Udenberg. I mean, even us adults struggle, right? So
Right.
so I was very glad to be given that title, accessibility educator, because all of that experience and the ability to look at problems and solutions from multi different views and ask those curious questions and invite people in to the processes, I think would not happen if I wasn't an educator at heart. And so that's the nod in my nonprofit name to that whole thing. Plus, with the with is all about the education side of it. So that's what sets my nonprofit board apart. Is we're all integral somehow in the education world, and we're all about accessibility and allyship, as well as disabled people doing the work for disabled people. So yeah, so writing the memoir was hard. Getting back to your original question,
Yeah.
there's so many things that jam pack into it, but it was a work of heart. It was a work of tears. At one point, I took a 3-month break from it because, like, it was just a lot. I had a coach, and the best advice she gave me was, don't write your memoir chronologically. Because as a type A, I was like, dude, there's a lot of life here. And she's like, dude, write it with the energy and the heart and the spirit that you have that day. And then in the editing process, we'll figure out how to put it all together. But like, don't force yourself to tell part of your story that you don't have the capacity to tell in that day or in that sitting.
Yeah. Ooh, right. And, when I was writing my book too, people were like, okay, so mark out like 2 hours a day. I'm like, but I could do that. But then I'd be like, just sit there.
Right.
Mm, It's
I'll
not
just
coming
drink
to me right
my right. I'll just drink my coffee for 2 hours. How does that work?
now. Right. I'm like, this isn't working. Yeah. Do it when you're inspired.
Yeah. So that was great. And I did it through like writing rooms. So we'd all sit on Zoom, and that really helped me have accountability. And like, you can just picture my background like completely dark because I did most of the writing in winter, and northern Minnesota is pretty dark for about 5 or 6 months out of our year. So
Girl, is it any darker than Cincinnati?
I'm sure we're a little bit north of you. Just a wee bit.
You ever want to go south? We need more sunshine.
Right.
No, but I like that because what I actually have I've had to change my mindset about winter and
Mm.
our gloomy days. I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. Today I get to be lazy, or today I
Yep.
just can read or write or whatever I feel like doing. So,
Yeah.
it's
And
nice outside. It's like, I gotta get outside.
I'm gonna take my book outside. I'm gonna do all these things.
Hmm. Yeah. So we can take advantage of our winters to do
Yeah.
productive things inside. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Comfy
long did it?
cozy.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write the book?
About a year
Okay.
with a 3-month stint off. So
Yeah.
9 months of actual writing and personal editing. And then I worked with a local editor friend. So that also helped.
And when was this released?
July of 2023.
Okay.
Yeah,
Isn't
during
it
this.
amazing? It's so amazing. Mine was in 22 and
Okay.
September of 22. And I mean, you were still promoting, and new things,
Right.
new ideas are coming to me too. I talk about my daughter's issues that she had after she was hit by a car
Right.
while crossing the street in a crosswalk. And, she's been on a journey of figuring everything out, and it takes a while.
Mhm.
And we have understood that we're not grateful that that happened to her, but if it didn't, I wonder where I would be today.
Um,
Probably living this same life that wasn't very fulfilling for me or anyone else. So we like to say this has helped us in a lot of ways too, because
yeah,
you do,
absolutely.
and you do see, you're like, oh, wait, I have a bigger purpose now. Now I have to help others.
Right. Now I get to, right? I get to be a servant leader. I get to come alongside other people's stories and amplify
Yeah.
their lives and their stories. And
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so much of non-disabled culture, you know, I think they're trying to be well-meaning, but in the same respect, then it comes across as pity, or it comes across as, like you just said, like, well, I bet you'd love to go back to when you're 7 years old and not make that happen. And it's like,
Right.
nope, because then I'm not me. Like, I don't know who that person would be. I don't think I would have the resilience. I don't think I'd have the healthy relationships and all of these other things that I have. I mean, maybe because something else tragic, hard, whatever adjective you want to use would probably happen to the non-wheelchair using Jenna. But, like, yeah, no, I'm stronger and I'm better because of my disability. Like, it's the environments that I get put in that disable me. It's not me being disabled.
Mm. Yeah, and so why is disability not a bad word?
Right. Love that question. Because everybody is impacted by disability, and it's it isn't good or bad, it just is. Like, in my belief system, I don't have a superpower. I'm not going to overcome my disability. Like, this is a part of me, and like I have some really good friends and I love them to death, but sometimes when they say, "Oh, Jenna, I don't even see your chair." It's like, I kind of get what you mean, but in the same respect, this is all of me. And so this has created me, this is a part of me. And again, I'm just, I'm far along in my journey of acceptance of my disability, and I prefer being called disabled. I'm not a golf term. I'm not handicapped. I'm not any of those older generation harmful, hurtful words that most people don't say anymore, but there's still some folks that say some of those words. And I catch myself still, right? Because handicap parking, and I hate that. So it's accessible parking. But now in the world where like the catchphrase is everything's accessible, then sometimes to those of us in disability community and culture, other people's version or definition of accessible isn't what we mean by accessible. So, words matter. Having shared definitions matter. Shared vocabulary is always very important.
So, Jenna, what is your superpower?
Even though I said I wasn't super powered.
Uh-huh. Well, what's your superpower? We all have superpowers. Come on.
That's a great question. Um, I would say I've always been an authentic, open book, and I can usually make people cry and laugh in the same moment. So,
Ooh,
yeah.
I like that. So, do you have more books on the way?
That's always a question. As soon as I got done with my first author
Oh,
talk
don't you?
here,
Yeah.
our local librarian was like, "So, when's book two coming out?" I'm like, "But it's my memoir. I gotta live a few more years before I can like add something." Um, Actually, I'm working with one of my college buddies. I'm hoping to get Within My Spokes out in audio format in July for Disability Pride Month in July. So I thought that'd be a good 2-year turnaround. It wasn't intended to be a 2-year project, but when you're recording your own voice and rereading the stories and doing all the things, it just takes some time. But want that to be out there. I am kicking around the idea of trying to do some kind of children or youth novel. Maybe not completely about Within My Spokes, but about some of the key stories in my journey. So
I love that.
yeah, we'll see what's next.
Yeah. So, what about this nonprofit? What's it called? Above and
Uh,
Beyond?
yeah, Above and Beyond with You. So above and beyond stands for that we can go above and beyond the ADA code. That the ADA is just the floor, not the ceiling. So working together in partnership is the with. So we're working with local agencies, entities, individuals, groups, businesses, what have you, to become a more inclusive and accessible space. We're not a checklist, but it's about being committed to the spirit of the Americans with Disabilities Act and working together with disability culture and community. So that way it's true inclusion and authentic inclusion, not just a checklist or a pat on the back of like, ooh, look at us. We say we're doing all this work and sometimes we're not. So
Yeah. What was it like when you were writing your memoir? I know we've talked a little bit about it, and you said it took about, what, 8 months or something?
yeah.
You said sometimes you had to take breaks. So it was a lot of ups and downs. a lot of emotion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of reaching out to people that were very pivotal people in my life because I wanted to bring honor to them, but I only use their names if they gave me permission. I only, and like I said earlier, I don't want to villainize anybody that maybe caused hurt or harm. But I also wanted to be authentic about that we face some of those struggles and we face the ignorance and the oppression and the discrimination.
Yeah.
And the word I was given before I wrote my book was tapestry. So the subtitle is A Tapestry of Pain, Growth, and Freedom. And so I loved that visual of the tapestry because, if you look at the front of it, it's always that beautiful thing, right? Like the backdrop you have behind you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's big threads, there's big bold things, there's less things that kind of bring highlight, there's sparkly things, there's not as sparkly things. And then when you flip that tapestry over, it's a hot mess, right? It's strings everywhere. It's knots. It's,
Mm-hmm.
everything overlapping and it's just a hot mess. And so what's very cool that I couldn't have even imagined in this process, but I'm so glad it happened is a close local friend of mine who's in my book. She has friends that come and they're like, "Hey, Megan, I read your book." And she's like, "My book? Oh, you read Jenna's book that I happen to be a chapter of." And my good friend Jamie, who's my ride or die, a disability mentor and best friend, she actually it's her wedding weekend that's on the cover at one of our local disability camps. And so that picture was actually taken by Megan at Jamie's wedding venue. And
Oh, I
same
love
thing. So
that.
people would be like, "Jamie, we read your book." And Jamie's like, "I don't have a book. It's Jenna's book." But I love that the tapestry of all the friendships and relationships that have made me who I am, and especially a healthier version of myself, are getting, that recognition. And it's all of us because all of our lives are interconnected. So it's not just my story I'm sharing, but it's our story that I'm sharing.
Yeah. That's so true. Because everything, you know, helped you evolve through this and the good and the bad and not well, nothing's really good or bad. It just is. It's what we
Right.
make of it. So
Hmm.
so it's all lessons learned. No mistakes, I say. Just lessons
Right. And sometimes we get to learn that lesson over and over and over again.
until we make a new decision.
Right.
We're like, "Oh, I get it now." That's
Right.
where I'm at. And awareness is everything too. I
Yeah.
mean, you've done so much. I'm just so excited for you. I know that you have even so much more coming out for everyone and just for you to share your story and to put yourself out there. I mean, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been interesting. Had I thought 3 years ago that I'd be sitting here with you doing the thing called podcast, like I would have never thought that. But as I, started wheeling into leadership and I started wheeling into these spaces, like, it really started with the Blandon leadership thing. And I was like, wow, there's like our former female mayor, and there's like the leader of our chamber and all the things. And like these strong, confident women that you've looked up to since you were, and kind of unconsciously, right? Like, I don't know that we always just go like, oh, there's but
Yeah.
like in the back of our mind, it's like, oh, she seems cool and healthy and like somebody I'd like to like get to know or emulate or like, oh, I like that part of it, right? And that's why representation so matters. And I'm so excited to see that the next generation of disabled young people get to see representation in ads, in Hollywood, in films, in all the things, in writing, in music, in all of that. Because, when 29% of the American population identifies as being disabled,
Mhm.
even with the ginormous negative stigma that's still out there because we think disability is a bad word when it's not. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And so just taking that and then learning about the imposter syndrome, learning about like, oh, I should get a life coach and like do some hard work. Okay, sign me up. I've got that personality that wants to do better, that wants to be healthier, that wants to do the next hard right thing at the right time.
So you've worked with mentors and coaches?
Yeah, that was a part of the Bush Fellowship.
Oh,
And so that was great. I got to work with two different folks on two different sets of things. And yeah, so lots of cool stuff above and beyond. With You Wouldn't Be Here, Within My Spokes Wouldn't Be Here. Like a lot of things wouldn't be here without doing that hard work on the backside.
yeah. And so, like you said, and here you are now stepping into the leadership role, you know?
Mhm.
And so I have to tell you this, something that happened with my daughter. This was probably like the first year after her accident. And so she also has nerve damage on her left foot. So she has a lot, some issues with that. And when she first started driving, she had that handicap sticker, right,
Mm,
in the car.
right.
And so at our apartment complex, and somebody saw her get out of the car and just walk into the apartment, and
Hmm.
it's so easy just for people to judge, to look, but to say something, it's like, oh,
Right.
wow. And this
Yep.
is why it's so important what you're doing because, with our book, She Looks Fine, it's you can have disabilities too and not be able to see them. And we do know there's a lot of people with that as well. And so I
Yeah.
think that's part of our mission is to help the ones that do have disabilities that are unseen.
For sure. And that for me was huge with the pandemic because people see the strong, resilient Jenna, even though I'm in a chair.
Hmm.
They don't see I'm immunocompromised by two or three different diseases and three different medications. So when Jenna's still out in public, she's still masking up. When Jenna's, not going to different events because there's just too many people and too much whatever, it's like still getting that judgment from people this many years past, that life altering, world altering thing is like, why do you care? Why does me taking care of my health and what me and my medical team have agreed upon, why do you feel like that's infringing on you? And why do I need to change to make you feel better?
Do you
So,
do you think
yeah,
it's always something in that person, it's something issue that that person has that's judging? And so
for
we
sure.
know that.
Yeah. And like I said, like that was my first personal experience of the invisible disability because I've always had to wear my disability, right? Like I couldn't escape. And so yeah, that was like really telling for me to be like, all right, put on the other shoe. And like, even though I still don't fully get it because that is, a different disability as well, I have greater compassion and greater ability to listen and ask curious questions of those that have the invisible disabilities.
Yeah. So we were talking about confidence. I'm sorry. Your confidence, have you always had it? Has it developed over the years? I assume.
Yeah, it's definitely developed over the years. I'm definitely in my own environment, definitely an introvert. I
Mm.
love to just be in my own space, fueling up, or with very close, near and dear friends. But when people see me out and about, they see me in leadership, they see me, with a microphone for music education or concerts or whatever, they're like, there's no way you're an introvert. I'm like, yep, I've just had to learn these skills to, for career and all the things. Um, but like imposter syndrome, especially becoming a published author, it was like, ooh, I hit click that day and it's like, oh, Nelly, the world has just changed. And then as people have asked, like, hey, tell this part of your story. And I'm like, I actually shared that in my book. I don't remember, because it's like that was so 3 years ago. I'm like, I guess I got to read my book more often to make sure I know what's in there. And but that's also great too, because that just shows that I wrote from my heart and I am such an open book that it's like, oh, okay. But being honest, I was just sharing with the president of my nonprofit and good friend before this call, and I just said, I just Googled myself last night. And there's a lot more of me to see on Google than before because I'm newer in this podcast world and whatever. And she's like, yep, things are moving and shaking for you. And I'm just like, imposter syndrome, like immediately. Like, what? And now I'm just like, nope. work through it, right? Like it's all a journey for all of us. And even the most confident outward people can still have all those internal battles that we all face. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Why is it that the people, this is just my observation, okay, everyone, but the people that I know personally, okay, and including
Mhm.
yourself, that are in some form of pain and you're on and you take have to take medication and things like that. Like, why are you the nicest people? He's like, wait a minute, you haven't seen all of me.
Well, yeah, no, there's some other things, but yeah. There is some feistiness and stubbornness and all those things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes I think pain and trauma and all those things are the things that rub off all those edges too. Sometimes they create the edges. I mean, I could be a very negative, bitter, entombed person if I made those choices of all the things that have happened in life. And there have been seasons of my life where I was that person, where I had to self-protect and I had to get through some of it, but I'm always thankful that my faith and that the relationships that I've invested in are the ones that always keep pulling me back to like, nope, you're serving a greater purpose. Nope, there's more to this story than what you're seeing and experiencing in this moment.
That's beautiful. I heard faith and community, friends,
Yep.
community, and collaboration instead of competition. And yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I hear you, girl. Where
For
can
sure.
people find your book?
Yeah, anywhere you buy your books. So it's out on Amazon, it's through Barnes and Noble, any of those places, probably your local library for folks that are closer to me for sure. Um, yeah, you can find it on our website too. There's a link to get to it from aboveandbeyondwithyou.org. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing
absolutely.
this. And you're sharing your story today. And I know you've inspired so many people. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. And if people want to reach out, we're also on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. So just look up Above and Beyond with you, just capital U, not YOU. Don't need extra letters.
Perfect. Oh, thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I appreciate you. Make sure to follow us and listen. We're also now open for sponsorship. So if you want to promote your business, your foundation, reach out. Let's talk because this podcast is growing. And make sure to like, subscribe, follow this because the guests just keep getting more incredible, just like Jenna today. Thank you again, Jenna.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today. And until next time, we'll see you all later.